Welcome to another edition of the Canalta Hotels Friday Night Spotlight, presented by IKS Media. I'm your host for this one, Clark Monroe, joined today by Jamie Neugebauer, my co-host. It's a great night, Nugsy. It's going to be a big-time Bungie Division matchup between the Melville Millionaires and the Weyburn Red Wings tonight. Again, it's the Canalta Hotels Friday Night Spotlight. Our first edition of this one went so good. It was a really fun game. Earlier, a couple of weeks ago. We're excited for this one because this one is a division matchup that has a lot on the line, Nugsy, between two teams who have seen each other quite a few times already this season.
Yeah, 4 times already they have seen each other. There's no love lost. They're two physical teams. It's, not every team in the SJHL is built like the quote-unquote Saskatchewan team. These two are.
These two are.
So it'll be fun.
It's going to be a fun time. So why don't we kind of set the stage for you here by having a look around the league first, and then we're going to dive in and focus a little bit more on the matchup itself. But let's start having a look at the divisional standings across the league. As you can see, we're going to focus in on the Bungie division tonight, and Weyburn sitting at the top of the Bungie division with 21 points right now. Estevan with 20 points, Yorkton right there with 19, and Melville not very far behind. So a win tonight could go a very long way for Melville because they actually play Weyburn tomorrow night as well in a head-to-head, a home-and-home series. So this weekend could go a really long way for Melville. We'll get into that in a moment. As you can see, in the UPL division there beside them, Nipawin and Flin Flon right now are tied for that division lead. Melfort right behind them, and then Larange with 11 points. Still not out of it, but they need to pick up a few wins here soon. And unfortunately for them, I don't believe they play this weekend. So it's going to be a bit of a grind for them to get back into it. And then in the Nutrient division, Humboldt has been red hot lately, winning 8 of their past 10 games. Of course, they're sitting in first place in the league right now. Kindersley not far behind, and they have a big weekend coming up. They could get a couple of wins here this weekend for Kindersley. They could actually tie Humboldt for the division lead. Battleford's with 16 points and Warman with 10 points in the Nutrient. But we're going to focus a lot more today on the Bungie division. But why don't we have a look at the league leaders in scoring right now, Nugsy, as we kind of see, we'll see a couple of guys are going to be on the ice tonight for this matchup that we're talking about, but we'll start with Jacob Streetsy and Ewan Rennie. These guys have been running the league so far this year. Rylan Williams with Estevan, obviously that dynamic duo of Ewan Rennie and Rylan Williams have been so impressive. Gabriel Corshane and his teammate Jai Zawatsky right behind him. You see Boston Harkness there. He's going to be a big impact player in tonight's matchup with the Melville Millionaires, and Cale Margolis, of course, just below him. And then Lucas Schmid for the Weyburn Red Wings, a guy that I don't think either of us necessarily expected to see at this high up on the leaderboard this early in the year, but he has had a fantastic, torrid start to the year so far, Nugsy.
Yeah, he does it all for Weyburn. We knew he could play in his own end, and we cannot underestimate the value of championship experience in those Weyburn Red Wings team, and especially Lucas Schmid seemed like they learned a ton from facing the Melfort Mustangs in the Canalta Seeds Cup final last year. And if you talk about a wing that took a big step forward, the biggest step forward, it's probably Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas Schmid for sure. And we talked about him so much in the playoff run last year, just how impressive he was as a two-way centerman. And we'll get into him a little bit more as we focus in on the Weyburn Red Wings a little bit in a couple of minutes. Let's have a look at the goaltending leaders across the league here, and then we will jump into that head-to-head matchup. But Charlie Tritt has been just an alien so far with his numbers this year. Unbelievable stuff. 3 shutouts, leading the league in shutouts, save percentage, saves. Not quite saves, actually, I shouldn't say that, because Brett O'Halloran had a ridiculous night the other night. So that actually put him up there in the saves lead. But leading the league in almost every single category for goalies. We see Preston Patino, he's a member of the Weyburn Red Wings, he's up there. No Melville Millionaire Nugsy, but they have a couple of young guys that are really impressive. We'll talk about them in a sec. But Preston Patino has been really good for Weyburn so far. I guess maybe just a thought on him as we kind of touch on the top goalies.
You know what? The hockey gods, the karma, whatever you want to call it, they reward kids that have the right attitude, that come to work the right way. And last year was not an easy year for Preston Patino. Came into this Weyburn team out of the Yorkton AAA, did not get to play very much. Obviously, they had Matanovich and Zoll ahead of him.
Yeah.
And, he practiced, and he had a smile on his face, and he came to work the right way. That's what Cody Mapes kept saying. And they held on to him, and we said, okay, well, maybe you want an upgrade with Ty Matanovich. I don't know. But Preston, that was not in Cody's mind, and he has rewarded Cody Mapes for that. So good for you, Cody. Good for you, Preston. Obviously, a good Saskatchewan kid, always good to see. And yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a pretty interesting 1A, 1B, and you never know from night to night who's going to be in net for Weyburn.
Well, let's have a look and focus in now on this matchup as we kind of go from a league view to a more focused-in view on this game tonight. Let's have a look at the head-to-head between the Melville Millionaires and Weyburn Red Wings, and just in terms of team stats. This doesn't talk about their 4 games that they've already played against each other, but this includes everything. So as you can see, right now, obviously their records are a little bit different as Weyburn leads the Bungie division. Melville's at the bottom of the Bungie division, but at the end of the day, Melville has had a really okay start to the year. They're not putting themselves in a bad position yet, so they're right in it. They just need a couple wins. They need to figure a couple things out. But as you can see, I think the biggest thing that stands out for me, pretty similar on the special teams, Nugsy. Obviously, Weyburn's been a little bit more impressive, obviously, in the power play department. Pretty similar in the penalty minutes, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, Melville's had a few more penalty minutes with the way that Doug Johnson plays. They're a very physical team. But the biggest thing for me is the goal differential. I think one thing we kind of expected was maybe Melville at this point of the year was going to be really hard to score on. Hasn't quite been the case yet for them this year. And we weren't sure if Weyburn was going to have enough offense after last year's departure of all of those offensive superstars. That has been the case. They have been scoring goals. So I think that's the biggest thing that stands out for me. Maybe what stands out for you here?
You know what stands out for me, Clark? We'll throw this all out.
Yeah.
Throw it all out. It doesn't matter. You know, it matters. In the big picture, it matters. This is a big picture. Fair enough. For tonight's purposes,
sure.
None of that matters. Because they have they have rosters that can compete with each other. Melville is huge, physical. You know, they've had some rest here.
Yeah.
They've had some time to practice. Hopefully, they buy into what Doug's preaching.
Yeah.
So we throw that out. But B, you look at the matchups, the 4 games. 2 wins each, which is what we probably expected coming into the year.
Balanced,
very even. But actually, the deeper stats, is it the time to go into some deeper stats?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, this is it.
Deeper stats say Melville has been the better team in
the 4 games so far.
So 21-15, the score combined, Melville. 84-58 Weyburn in hits. So you give Weyburn the hits.
Okay.
But other than that, it's all Melville. 51% on the dot. We talk about Lucas Schmid. He wins every face-off, but you've got Cale Margolis and Yibin Yu for Melville. They win almost every face-off, so that's pretty good for them. 142 to 117 shots in the 4 games for Melville, so they've been in Weyburn's zone a good amount. XG is very slightly in Melville's favor, expected goals. Corsi, Clark, 57% for Melville.
That's impressive.
57%. They are in the Weyburn zone. They are getting good chances.
They're creating shot opportunities, yeah.
So Doug has some idea of what he wants to do to take down Cody Mapes. 73 to 61 the scoring chances in favor of Melville.
Wow.
So you look at the standings, Weyburn has been full value for being one of the best teams in Canada, and I don't say that lightly. They are one of the best Junior A hockey teams in Canada. The Weyburn Red Wings are.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that away, but that does not mean that this is a clear favorite matchup for Weyburn. I don't care what the records say, but all that says, that matters, but for this matchup, that doesn't matter.
Well, let's have a look at who the impact players for the Melville Millionaires might be in tonight's game as we look at their stat leaders. Boston Harkness and Cale Margolis are running away with it right now. Of course, Cale Margolis came back from the WHL earlier this season, and he has lit the league on fire ever since coming back. 1.46 points per game. Yeah. Unbelievable. Rylan Oatman, a very impressive first-year player for Melville. Matthew Edwards, former Weyburn Red Wing. Yeah. He knows what it takes to beat those guys, and you know he wants to.
Literally.
So, well, yeah, physically a very imposing person. Yeah. Jackson Lee, Devin Winder, some size there. Good players there. 7 goals each. So they're tied for the team lead in goals, both those players. Grady Carmichael's having a really nice point per game stretch right now with 9 points in 11 games. Preston Barrowald, the former first overall pick in the SJHL draft, having a really nice season and taking a step forward for the Melville Millionaires. Leo Jewett, Riley Cragen, of course, a defenseman. Leo Jewett just hasn't quite been in the lineup enough. He's been battling some injuries throughout the year, but a nice season for all those guys. And then you look at the bottom there, Nugsy, in the goaltenders department. You can start with the forwards and the skaters if you want, and then jump into the goalies. But a pretty balanced approach generally outside of the 2 top guys for the Melville Millionaires.
Yeah, I love the mix for Melville.
Yeah.
Definitely, really everywhere. And I think they've been trying to figure out their goaltending situation. We'll talk about Fuzz
Affett.
Well, his name is Michael, but apparently he's been called Fuzz. I asked Boston Harkness, I asked Doug Johnson why he's called Fuzz. I asked Boston. He said, I don't know. And I said, how is that not the first
Just
question
ask.
you ask him when he shows up at the CN Community Center? But anyways, that's just what he's always gone by. And he looks like he could be an option, an answer to their question. Synagogues has had some good nights too. I think that's probably their biggest problem right now. But again, I love the mix. They put Jackson Lee up on that line with Cale Margolis, and I love that because there are few guys in this league that can skate as well as Jackson Lee. I know he's a big boy, but he's got a great stride. He can fly. So you back off the D, you create some space, and Cale Margolis, when you ask me, and I know, I'm sure you're getting a message from Jacob Streetsy, and that's fair enough, but he is the best forward in the SJHL, and I would take him above anybody right now.
Bam.
So that is Cale Margolis, worth the price of admission. And obviously we've talked a lot about Boston. Harkness, his character, his leadership off the ice is second to none in this league. But then you throw in the fact that he's putting up these points, so impressive, and looking a lot like he did, his last year in AAA with Estevan AAA, just totally dominant in every way.
Yeah, he's definitely a guy we kind of saw some signs from in the past couple of years, but we were always so impressed by his defensive play. And then this year, he's just taken a huge step offensively. So huge to see.
7 points away already from his career high.
There you go. Exactly. That's impressive. Super impressive. Let's flip the script over to the Weyburn Red Wings and see who they're working with. A lot more in terms of offensive production. We saw they had scored a few more goals than Melville had this season, but a lot more points coming from kind of the depth guys and stuff. So Lucas Schmid leading the way, but Rowan Burgess has been so impressive. Tied for the team league in goals so far this year. Turner McIntyre is coming back from that injured season last year, having a really nice season so far. Josh Sale, obviously a big piece in that Daza Mitchell trade last season. He's paying off dividends for Cody Mapes right now. Callis Pierce was a guy you called out early in the year as a guy to watch for this team, point per game right now for him. And a bunch of other guys, like I said, kind of filling in behind them. Preston Patno and Ty Matanovich both having some pretty good seasons so far for the Red Wings in the goaltending department. Obviously, we talked about Preston having such an impressive start earlier on in the show. But Nugsy, when you see this list, who stands out and why are the Weyburn Red Wings in first place? In first place in the Bungie division right now?
Yeah, for me, they've got some good forwards, absolutely, and I like a lot of them. For me, it starts on the back end. For them, Simon Martin, fresh off the Western All-Star Challenge. You said Preston Bearwald. He was very good at the Western All-Star Challenge too. Wesley Olson, did what Wesley Olson does. That's worked extremely hard. Have great character, play above his weight class. That's what he does. But this decor for Weyburn, it's the best decor in the league. I'm sure, again, there's being Flin Flon keeps adding. Humboldt will keep looking into add whatever. But this is the best decor in the league right now, and I think it's a clear thing. I've loved Josh Carman. Since his Battleford's days. Obviously, Luke Schrader with his crazy greasy ginger mustache. He just keeps the game the right way. Obviously, Jonah Baird is back from injury. They've added Jackson Doyle, as an 07 on the back end. So there's so much to like on the Weyburn back end. They can pitch in offensively and defensively. They can kind of do it all, and that really makes the life of the Callis Pierces and the Turner McIntyres of the world easier because those guys move the puck so well, on the back end and play such a heavy, hard game. I wouldn't be surprised if, you talk about one of the best teams in Canada, and they are. I wouldn't be surprised if Cody Mapes keeps looking for sort of another 20-year-old sort of star forward. I don't know how easy they are to find these days. But still, there is weapons all over. It's a very deep, more than a top-heavy Weyburn forward core. They can score. They play in your face. They've played playoff-style hockey all year, right from the beginning. And if there's a team in the league, if there's a coach in the league that gets his team to play playoff-style hockey on a regular basis, it's Doug Johnson. So this is a matchup where you look at it and you think, you know what, this is going to be worth the price of admission. It's going to be like a playoff game in November. Yeah. So we've talked about the players on both sides. We've talked about how these teams have already played each other 4 times. What's the keys to tonight's game, Nugsy? And remember, this is game 1 of a home and home. So they play again tomorrow night. So what's the keys to tonight to set the tone for the weekend? Yeah. So for Melville, it's on the line, playing on the line. Melville needs to play an emotional, heavy, hard game. That's what Doug Johnson demands. He holds his guys accountable. But they have lost their way a bunch this year, just in terms of letting their emotions get the best of them, taking penalties, getting suspended, taking majors, etc. I think Doug's happy that his team wants to be physical, but they can't take penalties.
Yeah.
This is too good of a Weyburn team.
And they have a 25% power play right now, so they need to be careful.
So stay on that line, Melville. Not saying, be soft, because obviously Doug Johnson teams will never be soft. But, but stay on that line. For the Weyburn Red Wings, you got to shake off last weekend. Shake off last weekend against Estevan. They lost 2 games. They could have won both of them. But the Weyburn Red Wings, they had that long time off. I'm sure they've been raring to go in the week. They have some health. They have lots of, energy right now. They're getting Simon Martin back. They're getting Rowan Burgess back from the Western All-Star Challenge. Both those guys, put in a good showing too. But the Weyburn Red Wings are not going to put up with having a losing streak. So you shake off last week, you move forward into this week, and you got to feel good. They've had a lot of games at home, Weyburn, lately. Still got to make hay. I know they're doing great. You still got to make hay when you have all these home games because it's so hard to get on the road in the SJ. They've had a lot of home games at the Whitecap Resource Center, and another big one tonight.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, Nugsy, but I think the big key here is both teams have bottom 3 penalty kills right now in the league. So stay out of the box and make this a 5-on-5 game. I think it's going to be really interesting to see.
The more, I don't want to say boring, but the lower instance, the lower mistake game, that favors Melville.
Right.
The high
Once it opens up, we're going Weyburn.
Weyburn's gonna win it. If it's a track meet, Weyburn will win. Sorry, Melville, that's the way it goes. But Doug won't let that happen.
We're about to hear from both coaches of the game to kind of preview and get us ready from their perspectives tonight. But before we do that, let's hear from our sponsor, Canalta Hotels. All right, joined now on the Friday Night Spotlight by head coach and general manager of the Weyburn Red Wings, of course, the home team tonight, Cody Mapes. Cody, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It seemed like you were off the ice forever. You finally got back on the ice, and now a big home series with Melville this weekend. I guess what's the messaging to the team going into the weekend?
Yeah, you know what? I think we've had a good week of practice here. We've really focused on the first couple months of the year here, just trying to get better every day and trying to get better within every day. Within games, we've had some poor starts and stuff like that, but I thought for the most part, our guys have done a pretty good job on just building shift by shift, just stacking shifts and stacking days. And so, I mean, that message doesn't really change. We're talking about November 6th or 7th, whatever it is here, and we're a long ways away from where we want to be, and so I mean we're just trying to build towards April and May, much like we did last year, and that's really just the message all year. That doesn't really change too much.
Talk about this relationship. Whenever there's a showcase or an opportunity for coaches around the league to coach together, it seems like it's you and Doug Johnson. So what is it about Doug and the way he coaches and the person he is, I guess, that you've tried to add to your game maybe?
Well, I've guys like him and Blevs and Tarts when he was here. Like I've stole lots of things from those guys, and I think there's a saying something about imitation is a form of flattery or something like that. But I think there's a lot of really good coaches in our league, and I've never been shy to sing those guys' praises, including Doug. And so whenever I get a chance to work with those guys and learn from those guys, that's been important. I mean, you look at the last couple of years, we got a great chance to learn from Braden in that playoff series against Battleford, and then from Barney in the Humboldt series, and last year going through the 3 playoff series. It was very educational for us, and I think that I've been able to learn a lot from those guys. And so when I get an opportunity, I definitely want to put myself in a situation to be able to learn firsthand from some of those guys.
So Cody, a little earlier on in the show, we were talking about some of your scoring leaders, and obviously the guy at the top of the list right now stands out, Lucas Schmid. And we talked about the value of the experience of the playoff run for him last year. Last year we talked a lot about his two-way play, his defensive abilities, his face-off abilities, but now he's adding that dynamic offensive ability. What can you tell us about Lucas Schmid that maybe we don't know about, and how impactful he's been on your team this year?
Well, if you want to look back to last year, a lot of the 19-year-olds we have back this year, they weren't passengers last year. Like they were very much valuable players in that playoff run. Yeah, we were we were loaded up front with some 20-year-olds and stuff like that. But Schmieder scored a couple of huge goals, like something that guys won't remember. Like he played every single shift, I think, in that Battleford series against Ivashenko, Campbell, Knitting, and I don't think they got on the board until game 5. So I mean, like when you have a guy like that returning, it's pretty special. And he wasn't necessarily put in a position to be offensive last year, but he found a way to chip in where he can. And we knew Lucas was going to be like this. But that playoff experience that those guys came back with, it's really driven the mentality of let's just get better this shift. It's fine. At the end of the first period, unless you're down 5-rip to Melville, which happens sometimes, but the end of the first period doesn't matter. You want the second period to be better than the first. You want the third to be better than the second. And I think those guys that had that playoff experience last year really learned that through that whole process. And I think they've really carried that over to this year.
Last one from me then, Cody. Thank you so much for your time. When you look at this matchup with you guys and Melville, if it's going well for you guys tonight, what does the game look like in terms of a game model, the way it's going from your perspective?
You know what? We've talked about being fast and competitive. That's kind of always been our motto here. We want to be able to play with pace. We're a puck possession team, and if we for us to win tonight or be successful tonight, I think we've got to play in straight lines. We've got to take away time and space, and we've got to be competitive without the puck. I think those would be the things that we really need to focus on.
All right, last one then, and we'll let you go here, Cody. Projected starter in the net tonight is Preston Patenaude. He has been super impressive. He's at the top of the leaderboards right now in a lot of goaltending stats. Can you tell us a little bit about Preston and why he's had such a great start to the year?
It's been his work that he's put in over the last year. There's no secret to this. I shouldn't, outside of our room, there's no secret to this, but guys probably don't know. He played 2 games last year. He got pulled in one of them and, was playing behind Daza and Zoll for a while and then Zoll for a while. And so it was, his work ethic and his mentality to just stick with it. Literally the guy that's on the ice till 3 p.m, practice starts at 11:30. And him and Luke PK and Simon Martin would be on the ice until 3:00 until the rink staff kicked him off.
Wow.
Every single day. And so, he did a lot of work this summer. He's worked on his mentality a lot, his skill set through working with our goalie coach in the summertime, stuff like that. He's, we're only, 6 or 7 starts in for him here, but he's earned the success that he's had, and hopefully that continues for him.
Well, appreciate all the chat today, Cody. Good luck tonight, and we'll talk to you again down the road.
Great seeing you guys.
Thanks, Cody.
All right, there was Cody Mapes of the Weyburn Red Wings. Now we're going to go to his opponent tonight, and of course that's Doug Johnson of the Melville Millionaires. Thank you for joining us, Doug. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So it's been an interesting season so far. The Bungie division as a whole, we've been saying it all along, very, very competitive. And you've already seen a bunch of the teams. You've seen Weyburn already 4 times. So what's the messaging going into tonight's game against Weyburn for the 5th time already this season?
Well, the big thing for us, we've got to focus on what we need to control, and that's control our discipline, control our work ethic. We do that, we're in a good spot, and too often we haven't controlled our work ethic. We've been outworked too often. We've been undisciplined, both with our systems and with penalties. So we just got to control what we can control. When we move our feet, when we play hard, I think we're as good as anybody in the league. It's just the inconsistencies this year have killed us, and we got to eliminate that.
Of course. Now, for sure. Now, obviously, there's a great argument that Boston Harkness is the best defenseman in the league. Probably has been so far, just from our perspective anyways. Just talk about the development arc you've seen from him, both as a young man and also as a hockey player.
Well, I'd like to know who's saying he's not the best D-man, because we could have some words there and have some fun with that. But he's the backbone of our team, and what I've liked to see is just the personality. He came in and was very quiet. Like the first year, I've been fortunate enough to have him for 3 years, and I think he might have said 3 words the first year. Last year he said maybe 20, 25, and this year we're getting like full monologues out of him. He's really embraced being a leader. He's really embraced being the captain and being the backbone of the team, and just seeing that, getting comfortable in his skin has been impressive. And then obviously on the ice, you get a little more comfortable in your skin, you're a little more comfortable on the ice. He wants to be the guy. He wants to be a difference maker every day, every night, and you see it on the ice. He's just 6'3" that skates well. He has the intensity, but he plays like he's never nervous, never afraid to make a mistake, and he knows what he's doing all the time. And he's a guy you can play 30 minutes a night, night in, night out, and just very fortunate we have him on our team.
So projected starting goaltender tonight is Fuzz Affett. Doug, what can you tell us about Fuzz? Obviously one of the best names in the league. So we'll go with that to start with. So pretty cool story there. But what is it about Fuzz that has been a nice little change of pace for you guys? Obviously some shuffling around in the goaltending department so far this season, but he seems to be a good fit right now.
Yeah, Fuzz, this is going to be his 4th game tonight. His first 2, they were the first 2 games he had all year, and we knew there was going to be a little bit of a rust to his game early on, and I thought he weathered the first 2 games well, gave us a chance. And then last game, he was lights out against Battleford, gave up 1, kept us in it, although I thought we probably could have been up 3 or 4 earlier on in the game, but made sure that he never gave up that second one once the first one went in. Just a big kid that moves incredibly well. Very strong in his legs, can move side to side well. And I think we're just going to see a lot of progression from him day in, day out. And what we see now is not what we're going to see at Christmas, and really happy he's here. And yeah, it's a great name. And,
it really is.
Nice story is he had fuzzy hair, curly hair when he was a kid, and it just stuck.
Love that.
There you go. Yeah, Michael's in net tonight.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah.
Last one from me, Doug. Really, really appreciate your time. Obviously, I don't need to tell you, the job that Cody's done with that Weyburn team. Turned it into a nationally ranked team, maybe one of the best teams in Canada right now. Clearly, one of the best teams in our league. How much do you kind of embrace or even see it as kind of an underdog situation for you guys going into their barn, or do you not even see it that way?
You know what, we don't see it that way. If we're thinking we're an underdog, then we're thinking we're not as good as the other team. And we go into every game thinking we're as good as anybody and they have to beat us. Just unfortunately, we've beaten ourselves more often than not this year. Last time we played them, we had a goal lead going into the 3rd period, took a penalty, then took a double minor against them, and they scored a couple power play goals against us, 1 5-on-3. Again, that's our discipline, beating ourselves, and we eliminate that. We're not going to be the underdogs. And yeah, the stats don't look very good for the Melville Millionaires right now. We are not happy where we are right now, but we're not going to consider ourselves underdogs in any fight.
Absolutely. And it seems to me, Doug, like a team that just give it a couple of good weeks, and you're going to be right near the top of the standings. So you're right there, and it all starts this weekend. So really appreciate your time here today with us, Doug, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, guys.
All right, so there you have it. We've heard from both the coaches. We've given you all the preview you can ask for. Nugsy, appreciate that. And it's going to be a great game tonight. Final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I love what Doug said. Hey, discipline's got to be on point. Compete's got to be on point. And this Melville team does never believe that they are the underdogs. But hey, that's a good Weyburn team over there.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. And it's going to be a good call from our friend Dylan Fiesel at the Whitecap Resources Center. So enjoy the game, everyone. If you're watching on Flow Hockey, enjoy it. If you're going to the rink, if you're in the rink, maybe watching this, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week on SJHL Weekly. Bye for now.